In the name of God, our Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer. Amen. Earlier this week I returned from Virginia. I went there to be with my family for my granddaughter's confirmation. There was a large group of confirmands, and they all had to choose a saint with whom they identified. So I asked Gwendolyn, who did you choose? Saint Genevieve, she said. And I'm thinking to myself about All Saints' Day, and I'm thinking, I know nothing about this Genevieve, who this might be. So I said, what was it about Genevieve? Why did you choose her? Well, she said, because she is a patron saint of disasters, and my life is such a disaster. As only a 13-year-old witty girl can have a disastrous life. I like humour. I'm going to continue with a little bit more humour, because as I read today's Gospel, I remembered a piece of a story from a Monty Python film, Life of Brian. It was the scene where Jesus was preaching on the Mount, as we just heard from the Gospel. And apparently there were these characters at the back, and it's hard for them to see, and it was hard for them to hear. Big crowd, no sound system. What was that? Someone asked. I think it was blessed are the cheesemakers. Well, what's so special about cheesemakers? Well, came the reply, it's obviously not meant to be taken literally. It refers to any manufacturer of dairy products. It's true that in good humour there's often a thread of truth. Because if we look at the list of people who Jesus says are to be blessed, it doesn't just include saints with names like Genevieve, and cheesemakers might just as well be included. It's a fairly inclusive group. And certainly maybe there are only a few among us, if any, who are cheesemakers, but there are dressmakers and cabinet makers and all sorts of makers who, from time to time, are like the rest of us. When we feel poor in spirit, or hungry for justice, or we cry to God when we mourn, to weep over the pain of the world, and hoping and praying for God's grace and blessings. Jesus preaches a very different message from what was expected, and he still preaches that message to us. Too often we are led to believe that blessings are limited to those who are rich, or powerful, or successful. But Jesus says, nope. Blessings are to be found even in situations that we might want to avoid, and maybe especially in those situations and in the real disasters of our lives. And many of the things that Jesus lists as blessings are not those we would want to sign up for. Let's face it, earlier this week, no one wanted to live without electricity and see their food in the freezer begin to rot. Although, as one colleague of mine shared, as much as it was an inconvenience for her, it made her more aware of the people of Puerto Rico and all of the other places, those who have had major disasters in their lives. When our own disasters strike, be they large or small, it might bring us to realise that we don't always like having to rely on someone else. We don't want to be poor in spirit. We'd rather be independent and not need God's help. We don't want to have to mourn for the pain in our own lives or for the injustice and hurt in the world. And often we don't even want to be peacemakers when we see that we might have to take abuse without giving it back. The Beatitudes remind us, in the midst of situations that we don't want and certainly don't choose for ourselves, God is there there, in the midst of it all, for us, just as God was with the saints of old. God chooses to be with us in those moments and in those situations. So blessed are, well, who is blessed? Who might be included in this list? That question was put on Facebook a couple of years ago, asking people to finish the sentence, blessed are you who? And back came some of the answers. Blessed are you who speak the truth in love. Blessed are you who remember to laugh, even when you want to cry. Blessed are you who help keep our sense of humour. Blessed are you who really respond to the sermon. Blessed are you who write books for us to read and compose music for us to hear. And blessed are you who have cancer and bear, and blessed are those who accompany and love them, and those who accompany the caregivers. Yes, blessed is the community of saints past and present who care and seek peace, who are hungry for righteousness, who mourn and yet are merciful. For part of our calling as Christians is not only to recognize our own incredible blessings, but to work with each other, guarding each person's dignity, and as we've just sung, to be Christians by our love and be known that way, and thus to join with the saints of the past to help create a world that more closely resembles God's hope for it. So as we come together this morning as a community on this celebration of All Saints' Day, we're reminded that it is not only the day we remember those who've gone before us, it's one of those occasions that is most appropriate for baptisms, the one act that joins us all together with all of the saints, past and present. And while we don't have a baptism this morning, you might have noticed I began the service with the sentences for baptism, and after this sermon, I will invite you all to reaffirm our baptism vows together. For in our baptism, whether we are cheesemakers or one whose life is a disaster, we are all part of God's family, beloved children of God. And along with all the saints of all the ages, we are marked as Christ's own forever. Through baptism, we are joined together in this community of faith at Zion and with the community of faith around the globe. And yes, we're especially reminded on this day that we are joined with the saints who have gone before us. Saints like that 5th century Genevieve, who persuaded the inhabitants of Paris to stay in the city and to pray, assuring them that the attack would be inconsequential, for they had the protection of heaven. And so it was. And for the many saints whose names and deeds are long forgotten, we give thanks. And the multitude of saints, known and unknown, are those whose lives in one way or another have passed on God's gospel of love to us. We know that even the best of the saints did not have easy lives. Far from it. Many of them suffered greatly. And most of us here have learned that life is not always good or fair. And we are not alone as we encounter the disasters in our lives. And yet, we are still blessed. Blessed with God's grace, love, and mercy. Blessings certainly all around us. But as Mother Nature can remind us, as has done lately, even blessings we take for granted are not always guaranteed. What is guaranteed is that whatever the future brings, God is present with us. We are blessed by the God who loves and cares and gives us Jesus, who shows us how to care well for one another and for God's world. May the Lord bless us and keep us all. Thanks be to God. Amen. And I hope somebody would assure the youngest member of the choir that's just left, I'm fine with that kind of singing.